When you hear the words global finance, let's be real, your mind probably jumps to stock tickers, complicated charts, maybe something kind of boring, right? Well, let's try to flip that on its head. Because the story of global finance, it isn't just about money. No, it's really a story about power, about strategy, and about the invisible rules that quietly shape our entire world. So let's pull back the curtain and see how it all really works.
This quote right here just nails it. We're not really talking about tanks and armies anymore. I mean, not primarily. Today's battlefields? They're currency markets, they're payment systems, they're international banks. Modern power is often used quietly, almost invisibly, through the financial plumbing that connects the whole globe.
And that is the multi-trillion-dollar question, isn't it? If global finance is a game, who's writing the rulebook? Who are the referees? And maybe most importantly, who has the home field advantage? To figure that out, we first need to understand the arena itself, where this whole game is being played.
Okay, so first up, the architecture of power. We're not talking about a single building here, obviously. We're talking about how the entire global financial arena was constructed, piece by piece, over centuries, by the people in control. You can think of this timeline as a series of, well, system upgrades. We started simple with metal-based trade. Then Great Britain built the gold standard around its empire. After World War II, the US stepped in and created the Bretton Woods system. And today, we've got this floating currency system where exchange rates are constantly moving. Now here's the key takeaway. Each one of these upgrades wasn't just some technical tweak. Nope, it was a strategic move by the most powerful nation of the time to design the game in their favor.
And in today's system, there is one undisputed reigning champion, the US dollar. It is the absolute center of that floating system we just mentioned. But how? How did one nation's currency become so essential that pretty much every country on Earth needs to have it?
Well, it wasn't an accident. It happened in 4 really strategic steps. First, after World War II, the US was basically the only major economy left standing, and it held most of the world's gold. Second, it used that massive leverage at Bretton Woods to link all the other global currencies to the dollar. Third, after the gold standard ended, the US pulled off a genius move with the petrodollar system, making sure that global oil sales were priced in dollars. And finally, all of these moves together cemented the dollar as the default currency for just about all international trade, debt, and reserves.
And here is the result of that whole strategy. Today, around 60% of all the foreign reserves held by central banks all over the world are in US dollars. Now, this isn't just because of history. It's because US financial markets are the biggest and most trusted on the planet. And that gives the US a staggering amount of influence. So how is that influence actually maintained day to day? That leads us to the really interesting part, the hidden control system. You could call it the power behind the throne. See, behind the dollar's obvious dominance, there's this invisible architecture that quietly keeps the gears of the global economy turning, and turning in its favor.
We can actually understand this whole complex thing by breaking it down into 3 distinct, interconnected layers of power.
So at the very foundation, layer 1, you have the central banks. These institutions, especially the US Federal Reserve or the Fed, basically control the money printer and interest rates. And because the Fed manages the world's main reserve currency, it isn't just America's bank. Its decisions create ripples that become massive waves across the entire global economy.
And that power is incredibly sensitive. I mean, just look at this. A tiny change in the US interest rate, we're talking just 0.25%, can trigger billions of dollars to flood into or out of other countries in a matter of hours. That is real, tangible power.
Okay, layer 2. These are the rule makers, the institutions that set the global playbook. You've got the International Monetary Fund, the IMF, and the World Bank. They provide these crucial loans, but often those loans come with strings attached, policy conditions. And then there's the super influential Bank for International Settlements, the BIS, which kind of acts as the central bank for central banks, coordinating everything behind the scenes.
And finally, layer 3 is the market itself, but it's dominated by these massive private firms like BlackRock and JP Morgan Chase. I mean, these giants manage trillions of dollars, and their decisions about where to put that money can literally make or break entire companies, whole industries, and even governments.
So those are the 3 layers of the established system. But, no system lasts forever. And for the first time in decades, it looks like a new game is beginning, as new challengers are finally starting to emerge to try and rewrite the rules.
The main strategy these challengers are using has a name: de-dollarization. It's pretty much what it sounds like. It's a conscious effort by countries to reduce how much they rely on the US dollar by finding new ways to trade, to borrow, and to save. They are, in essence, trying to build a parallel financial universe outside of American influence.
And this slide, this shows you that strategy in action. Just look at the two columns. For basically every major piece of the US-led system on the left, an emerging alternative is being built on the right. To counter the SWIFT payment network, you've got China's CIPS. To compete with the IMF and World Bank, the BRICS nations, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, have created their own development banks. This is a direct, piece-by-piece challenge.
And the crucial point here is that this isn't just talk. These are real actions. They're building new financial networks to bypass the old ones. They're starting to trade with each other using their own currencies. They're stocking up on gold instead of dollars. And they're creating their own banks. It's a multi-front effort to build a whole new financial world order.
Which really brings us full circle, back to our opening idea. The great game of global power is no longer just about who has the biggest army. It's about who controls the flow of money, who writes the rules of debt, and who owns the platforms for trade. It's a much quieter, way more complex form of power, but it is every single bit as potent. So as we watch these new powers build their own financial systems, and as crazy new technologies like digital currencies jump into the arena, we're left with this one critical question. Are we just watching new players join an old game? Or are we witnessing the beginning of a completely new one?